Is there too much light on you?
My next guest is Eugene Williams Jr. He received a BA in English from Emory University in 1981 and an M.Ed. in Educational Leadership from the University of Mary Washington in 2007. He's a writer, speaker, educator, and former child actor who appeared on stage, screen, and television. In 1978, he became the first Black child in a major recurring role on the highly acclaimed CBS soap opera Search for Tomorrow. He has also been a guest contributor on NBC, CBS, CNN, and BET networks. Eugene spent 27 years as a public school educator. He has served as a teacher in Maryland, Virginia, and the District of Columbia. He's been an assistant principal both at the middle and high school levels, and most recently spent 5 years as a high school principal. He lives in Virginia with his wife, Jewel, a former elementary school principal, and their daughter, Paige, is a professional artist and entrepreneur with a master's degree in journalism from Georgetown University. Well, welcome to the podcast, Eugene.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate this opportunity.
Well, we'll get right into the question I ask everybody to start off with. Tell me about a time when you were in the trenches and managed to call out.
One thing that immediately comes to mind is several years ago when I
Mhm.
was an assistant principal in a rural district, Orange County, Virginia. The at that time superintendent called all of the administrators in for a meeting at the beginning of the year to try to figure out, um, you know, what can we do to narrow the achievement gap between Black and white students, especially on standardized tests. And at that time, my wife, who was also an elementary principal in the area, um, said to the body
Mhm.
of administrators that were around the table, we keep talking about it, but what are we going to do about it? And I nudged my wife under the table and told her to be very careful when you say things like that, because usually that means that you're going to end up being the chair of the committee to make those things
Yeah.
happen. But as it turns out, it did inspire our then superintendent to put together a task force that included many members of central office and included all of the African American administrators and administrators of color. And we set about a way to try to figure out a program that could be created to encourage Black male students to enroll in advanced courses, AP courses, honors courses, and the like. And so
Mhm.
what we did was we reached out to the well-known educator, Dr. Donna Ford, and she had worked a program called about for academic scholars throughout the country. She worked on programs to create Black male scholars throughout the country, along with an educator by the name of Gilman Whiting. And so she
Mhm.
came to us in Orange County and helped us create a program called the Academic Scholars Institute,
Uh-huh.
where we talked about the nine constructs of the scholar, where we gathered African American students and students of color at University of Virginia every summer to talk about the things, the behaviors, and the achievements that are required to be involved in these courses. And we kind of just trained these young men up and prepared them for academic success, which would allow them access these high-level courses. And I was so excited a few years back because the program was for grades 6 through 12.
Mhm.
So the time the first group um, got to be seniors, I'd already left the county
Mhm. Mhm.
in search of another job. But what was so great was one of the early members of that group ended up going to a full scholarship to Harvard University, a wrestling scholarship and an academic scholarship, and he was one of the original members of our group. So that's
Mhm.
just one time where I thought that it was great that administrators of all colors could work together to tackle a problem that just plagues a lot of our districts throughout the country.
Yeah, and when we talked about this in the pre-chat, I had Donna Wyford on the podcast about a year and a half ago, and so I'd heard about a little bit about this program from her. And I think this is a piece a lot of I think administrators and superintendents are looking at throughout the country, and it's been a question of mine with Dr. Ford, but also I think speaking to educators on this recording today. In your advice, how could public school educators increase the number of Black male students, female students as well, in honors, advanced placement, and dual enrollment courses?
Well, the first thing you have to do is change the mindset, unfortunately, of many of your students of color
Yeah.
in those systems. Number one, teach them that academic success is not uniquely a quote white thing, unquote. Sometimes somewhere along the line, a lot of students of color have been tricked into the idea of, well, if you're achieving in school, somehow you are acting white, whatever that means. And I think that's the first thing we have to attack, that first mindset. The second thing we have to do is help our teachers be more willing or more cognizant in terms of recognizing the academic talent that they have in their classes when it comes to minority students. A
Yeah,
lot of these programs are a part of referral systems. And if these Black kids and these Hispanic kids and these young women are not getting referred
yeah.
to these tracks of learning, then it's kind of hard for that type of growth to happen. So those are the types of things I would definitely instruct school systems to be more aware of, no doubt about it. And also, when we put the program together, we were kind of given an unfunded mandate.
Yeah.
It's like, put this together. Now, how are we going to pay for it? How you guys are going to help us pay for it? We don't know. That's what you'll have to figure out. And we were blessed enough to reach out to a lot of the local churches
Mm-hmm.
and local religious leaders who
Mm-hmm.
came together and inspired their congregations to donate to this cause. And we were able to raise the money to afford the opportunity for those students to go to for a 2 week session free of charge at University of Virginia every summer, and to
Mm-hmm.
learn the constructs of being a scholar and to help them move forward into what we wanted them to do. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah, and I think it's really, like you said, the community involvement, getting the funds together, but also when students in high school are able to get a taste for college life, a
Yes.
year or two before actually going, that goes a
Yes.
long way, right? They're able to
Yes.
see the campus, or able to kind of see what classes would look like and those types of things. And, like you said, that helps them
Well,
get that.
when those kids saw professors of color and experts of color in those fields, talking
Mhm.
to them in the fields of music, science, medicine, language arts. When they saw those professors and they saw those learned men and women that were achieving in those areas, that also was an inspiration to them to let them know that there's also you can also have careers in higher level education. And so just inspiring all the way around.
Hmm. Hmm. And since you left the principalship, has this work continued at that high school? Are you seeing a lot of the fruits? You said one of the students got a scholarship.
Right.
Are you seeing also many of the students now in their careers? And do you know what they're doing? Have you heard from a lot of them?
It's great that you said that because a couple of months ago I was asked to come
Mhm.
to their 10th anniversary
Mhm.
as their keynote speaker. And many of the speakers that came before me were some of the young men that I worked with, and they were young men in that program. And so we have in that group, we have people who graduated from Harvard, people who graduated from University of Virginia, Virginia Tech, Duke University. We have marine biologists in that group. We have public relations people in that group. We have doctors in training in that group. So it was really just a great time for me, a great time for them, and to see them grow into such fantastic young men. We even have civic leaders in that group. Some young men who are going into politics in the very, very near future. And especially if you're following politics at this time, there's no better time for young men of that ilk and of that mindset to enter the fray. So I was just very, very excited when I came back to speak to them as a keynote speaker about all the great things they were doing and were continuing to do. And then I also wanted to educate them because my late father, Dr. Eugene Williams Sr., was a native of Orange County. But just how history works, I got to be the assistant principal of a school he was never allowed to attend because of segregation. And so we
Mhm.
talked about that. We talked about the generations that came before us
Yeah.
that lived in Orange County and weren't allowed to attend that school and had to attend Carver Regional School, which was the school
Mhm.
for Black kids in Orange, Rappahannock, Greene, and Louisa counties, the neighboring counties. They all came together. And out of that group, we had scholars that come out of that group to inspire our younger people. And which was even crazier is one of the original members of the Academic Scholars Institute that I worked with
Mhm.
is now an admissions officer for a prestigious private school called Woodbury Forest. So now he's pulling some of our young men out of one system and into another. That could be good and bad, however you look at it. But it's just very,
Yeah.
very exciting to see the reach that the
Yeah.
program had.
Yeah. And definitely in another 10 years' time to see
Sure.
like how far some of those young men can go will be very interesting.
Right.
Let's switch gears a little bit. When you taught and also led high schools, you also saw how foreign language could improve students' writing, vocabulary, and reading comprehension. But you also saw that from your father growing up. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, I've always had a love of language, love of the English language, a love for vocabulary. And that was imparted to me by my father, the late Dr. Eugene Williams Sr. And so one of the things that he always encouraged me to do, even as a young child, there was
Mm-hmm.
never a weekend that went by that we didn't go to the library,
Mm-hmm.
and just pull out a book of any kind, of any level, and just read it and discuss it. And so that kind of prompted my love for reading. And then as I grew up and decided to go into education, I started taking, in high school, I took a lot of different language courses. I took Spanish, I took French, I took Latin. And one of the things that I saw was a lot of the words that we speak in English are derived from those Romance languages. And so I said to myself, wait a minute, hold on, I'm noticing something here. I'm taking these classes, my vocabulary is expanding, I'm doing well on the SAT. I would love down the line somewhere to help other people figure out how mastery of multiple languages can help you increase your strength in terms of your English vocabulary.
Mm-hmm.
And so as the years passed, that was part of my instruction. When I was a high school English teacher, I would tell the kids every year for the first 2 weeks, push the curriculum to the back because we're not doing it. What we're going to do for the first 2 weeks is we're going to do SAT verbal prep.
Mm-hmm.
And that was grades 9 through 12. And so then we started talking about root words and prefixes and suffixes and putting words together and seeing words in context. And then figuring out what words mean based upon our previous knowledge, some of which comes from our foreign language classes. Like we talked about earlier, if you see a word like defenestrate and you take in French, and you know that la fenêtre means window, and you know that de is a prefix meaning out or away from, and ate is a suffix meaning the act of doing something, you
Okay.
automatically look at that word and say, oh, that's the act of jumping out the window. And you start putting together words like that. And so when we talk about the French and especially Latin,
Yeah.
agricularum, agriculture, uh,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
puelli, puerile, childlike behavior. We could talk about all of those things. And so that's what inspired me to really kind of push forward that whole idea of using foreign languages to increase English vocabulary. And then later on, my father and I wrote a book together called Grounded in the Word, where what
Mm-hmm.
we did was we took the 500 most commonly found SAT verbal words and cross-referenced them with the words that we found in the King James Version of the Bible. And
Mm-hmm.
so you can learn the word while learning about words
Yeah.
at the same time. And so I've just always been a lover of words, and I've always been enamored with people who just speak well. When I get excited when I see Dr. Michael Eric Dyson or Dr. Eddie Glaude or Dr. Cornell West just talking. I get
Mm-hmm.
excited because I know they are masters of the
Mm-hmm.
language, and they happen to be
Yeah.
people who are Black men like myself.
Yeah. 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 Neil deGrasse Tyson, I think, is of as well. Just
Another genius, another genius. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that's something that goes without saying for people who have taught foreign language or English, right? But I think also when people have learned those Latin roots and are studying chemistry, right? They get kind of why a lot of things are named certain things, and goes through other sciences as well. But I think,
Well, the crazy thing about it was so funny, if I can interject. When
uh,
I was teaching English, I would tell them how I said, pay attention to the words because it's not just for English. You can also use it in math.
sure,
If I know acute is means sharp, then
uh-huh,
I know what an acute angle looks like. If I know obtuse means dull, then I
yeah,
know what an obtuse angle looks like. These are all things that we can use. And so what happens is people, the kids would always say, is this English class or is this history class or is this math class or is this not? I said, they're all the same class
yeah,
because we're speaking the same language. And so
uh-huh,
I often loved working with my colleagues in those other departments because we would work together to try to show
Mhm.
the kids the relationship between English and the math and the science and the history
Yeah.
and the PE, even if you will.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that was the exciting part, the cross-curricular work, you know?
Well, even like if you're doing different like stretches and there's a lot of ballet terms from French, those types of things, right?
Pot of array and this and that. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's one of those things where I think I was cursed with having parents who believed in having well-rounded children because
Yeah.
when I was coming up, I took the ballet classes, I took the karate classes, I took the piano lessons. And so a lot of those things I was able to impart in my classrooms to the young men and young women. And so just kind of life experiences along with the educational doctrine and learning and pedagogy, kind of all came together.
Yeah, and that leads a little bit into just how children can prepare students. First of all, we'll talk about the elementary school level. So before students even start elementary school, especially if they're not in a preschool or a K four or kindergarten, you said you used to work at Sylvan Learning Center when you first got out of college. So what did that teach you about getting kids prepared for elementary school?
Well, one of the things it taught me is it's not just the academic piece that
Hmm.
prepares students for success. It's the social piece. And you're going to laugh at this, but I'm telling you, these are the things you have to be very careful of. For example, parents,
Hmm.
before your child even gets to kindergarten, let's learn the basic things. Let's train them up in the basic things. Cover your mouth when you're sneezing. Say excuse me when you have gas. Look people in the eye when you talk to them.
Yeah.
If you see two adults talking, wait until there's a lull in the conversation and then say, hey, may I interject in there? Can I ask my question?
Hmm.
Basic things. Because teachers are human beings before they are teachers. And so they like that respect, they admire it. And it happens so rarely these days that when they see it, they get turned on. You know what I mean? And so that's one of the first things I would talk to parents about. I would also say, and in terms of reading, number one, read to your child
Hmm.
as soon as they come out of the womb. Heck, read to your child while you're still pregnant with them.
Hmm.
Read to your child. Um, Talk to them about what they've read. One of the things that people don't take advantage of, even a simpler frame, kids love TV. We all love TV, but there's the closed caption lines at the bottom of the TV screen. Kids
Hmm.
can see the actors' mouths moving while they're saying the words, while they're reading the words at the same time, and knowing what the words mean in terms of context and while they're being used.
Hmm.
That's where we learn. I don't know where we as a society got away from children's programming. I know that when we lost the everyday showing of Sesame Street and Electric Company and Zoom and Vila Alegre and shows like that, I know our kids lost a lot because as a child of that era,
Yeah.
I remember Big Bird and Bert and Ernie and
Mhm.
Roosevelt Franklin, all those guys. And so when I came to school,
Uh-huh.
I knew the alphabet already.
Uh-huh.
I knew how to count to 10 already. I knew all those things.
Yeah.
I watched Zoom and I knew about arts and crafts already. I watched Electric Company and I knew about putting syllables together to make words
Mhm.
already. So
Mhm.
these are all the things that we can, continue to do. If it's not on your TV, go to the local store or go online and find the old tapes, DVRs, whatever you need to do, and pop those in. I knew what the three branches of government were before I got to elementary school. Schoolhouse Rock. I knew about legislation. I'm just a bill. Yes, I'm only a bill. These are all very, very important things that people kind of gloss over and think are
Yeah.
silly because, if you watched those shows, you knew verb, that's what's happening. You knew noun is a person, place, or thing. You knew loudly, 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 get your adverbs here. You knew all that stuff. So you knew the
Yeah.
parts of speech. You knew basic math facts. You knew
Mhm.
basic history facts before you even walked in to the daycare or the elementary school building. These are all very, very important things. So those are some of the things that you can do and enact. You also want to make sure that you set examples.
Mhm.
Your children have to see you reading. If all your babies see you do is watch Real Housewives of whatever,
Yeah. Yeah.
the mentality is going to rub off on them.
Yeah.
Okay. So we need to see how they need to see parents reading. I tell this story all the time of my late great grandfather, Victor Williams Sr. And my dad, my late father, told me, we didn't even know Daddy Daddy had like a sixth to eighth grade education.
Mhm.
We didn't even know Daddy couldn't read until we had all grown up because every morning Daddy used to have the newspaper in front of him and would ask us, he would say, "What do you think that says?" We didn't know. We thought he was trying to get us to read. We didn't know that he wanted us to read to him because he didn't know
Yeah.
necessarily what was being said. And so then that inspired a love of reading. And then all my father's brothers and sisters did very, very well in school. Some of them went to the service, some of them
Mhm.
went into other areas of life, got trades. My dad was the only one that ended up going into higher level education. But that the Williams family in that they knew the nine kids, the Williams family knew some stuff in school. They all did very, very well because of the training, the inadvertent training they got from parents who weren't as educated as their own kids were.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so it can happen. You don't have to be a genius or exposed to a whole bunch of things to raise children who are excited about education. There's an old saying for the 100 Black men, that organization, what kids will be what they see.
Yeah.
Kids will be what they see. And so we have
Mhm.
to be very careful as adults to show them the right things and put the right images in front of them. And that's not just Black kids, that's white kids, that's rich kids, that's poor kids, to let them know that there's a way of behaving, a civil way of living in a society. It's going to help everybody advance and achieve.
Yeah, no, and I think there's a lot, a lot of things that I could say, like just in terms of being part of Gen X as well, and seeing Sesame Street, right, and getting
Right,
exposure to some of these things. I mean, I think I might have gone to preschool a couple days a week when I was really young, and then started school in kindergarten. But like, yeah, those shows are still available, but a lot of
yes,
parents might just be sitting their kids in front of whatever comes up on Netflix, right, and the kids
right, right.
those are just often cartoons that aren't educational. And like you said, if a parent is having their young child sit there while they watch some better, no better words than trash TV, reality TV sometimes.
I
So
mean,
it's not a good,
listen, that's
right? The reading in front of kids, the reading to kids. I mean, my oldest kids are 15 and 16, so I knew that when I had them about the reading piece. But I think there's also a lot of parents who are having kids now, and also younger parents who might not be
yeah,
seeing this as well. When you talk about the older generations, I mean, I think a lot about my late grandfather who passed away 10 years ago. And although he had been a mechanical engineer, his passion was the Civil War. And he lived in
sure.
Virginia as well. And he had all this memorabilia and he would always talk about the battlefields. And I mean, it was like, he was an encyclopedia about the Civil War. So that's one of the things
Yes.
I really remember about him was that passion for history and
Hmm.
about the different, battles and everything that like
Yep.
anything that I would want to know about the Civil War, I could ask him, and he would drive and visit the various battlefields in the area.
Right.
So,
And the thing about it is when you that brings to mind something that I was always tell my students,
uh,
because as a person who taught primarily and was an administrator primarily in the state of Virginia, I would say you live in a state
yeah.
where history is all around you. So when you drive down Jefferson Davis Highway,
Hmm.
especially if you're a person of African American descent, know who Jeff Davis was.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay, be aware of that and what he stood for and what he was all about. If you're living in an area where the athletic teams are part of what's called the battlefield district,
Hmm. Hmm.
the Spotsylvania County, why is it called the battlefield district and not the so and so? Know these things, and just to make kids more aware of their surroundings from a very, very young age. All of that can help in terms of how they absorb what's being taught to them.
Hmm.
I remember my daughter, she's now a grown woman, 26 years old. But she tells this story about how when she was in one of her AP history courses,
Hmm.
her teacher was talking about the 1950s and calling it the good old days. It was an exciting time for everybody.
Hmm.
And my daughter raised her hand and said, "Excuse me, Mr. So and so, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I'm pretty sure it
Yeah.
wasn't a good time for everybody."
Hmm. Hmm.
And then that engendered a whole nother set of conversations
Yep.
that no, not even faulting the teacher. The teacher then had to consider, wait a minute,
Sure.
you have to step away from this curriculum and then talk about how these times actually affected some of the ancestors of these kids that are in your class right now.
Mhm.
And then how does that change your framework in terms of what you're teaching? So there's a lot to learn from kids, and kids have a lot to learn from us.
Yeah. And also like curricula, like there's still a lot of whitewashing in curricula and
Sure,
talking
sure,
about the history behind, like, when we're talking about historical periods, or when we're teaching fiction in English class, for example,
right,
you know,
right,
the Harlem Renaissance and things like that. So I think, yeah, there's a lot. Let's shift a little bit into like achieving academically in middle and high school, for
sure,
parents who might be educators or who might be wondering about maybe kind of letting go of the reins a little bit, if their
sure,
child's entering middle school and high school, but also
sure.
making sure they keep an eye on what their students are missing, as I try to do, at least with my oldest, who's a junior in high school, and not let all the assignments accumulate that are missing,
Yes.
right?
It's crazy because when I was a principal and an
Hmm.
assistant principal, I would have conversations with parents.
Yeah.
I always made sure to do whatever I could to notify parents when their kids were struggling, either through phone call, through letter, social media,
Hmm.
not blasting out to everybody. I'm just talking about in terms of, DMs, whatever you have, that type of thing. And I would always tell parents this, the phone works both ways, don't you? Don't wait for me to call you.
Hmm.
Okay. And this whole idea of, well, my child would never lie to me. I
Yeah.
trust him or her. Stop.
Hmm. Hmm.
Does your child breathe air? Is your child a human being? Then your child has the capability to lie to you.
Yeah.
Stop romanticizing your child. So that's the first thing I would tell a lot of parents, because I was a father of a normal American student.
Yeah.
I was a normal American student. I didn't always tell my mom and dad the truth. There
Yeah.
were a lot of meetings. My mom and dad were educators, and there were a lot of teacher meetings when they came and got blindsided about what Gene Jr. wasn't doing.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay, so let's get that out the way. That's the first thing we can get out of the way.
Yeah.
Number two, the whole idea of um, teacher support
Yeah.
and communication. Now, parents, I'm talking to the parents now. I'm talking through you, but I want the parents to hear this.
Hmm.
Teachers don't have time to target your kids.
Yeah.
Okay. So if they're telling you there's a problem, odds are there might be.
Yeah.
Now you can listen to it and discuss it, and then you can figure out what you think the teacher's motivations are, where they're coming from, and then you can determine how you want to deal with it from there. But never ignore those red flags
Yeah.
as you see them come.
Hmm.
I would also say, you talk about loosening the reins.
Hmm.
No, you can loosen the reins when they're out of your house.
Hmm. Hmm.
While they're with you,
Yeah.
have a tight grip on those reins. Now,
Hmm.
there are certain times when you can loosen them up or
Hmm.
what have you, but the whole idea of when Johnny comes home and you ask him, don't you have any homework to do? Nah. And
Hmm.
Johnny doesn't ever have any homework. That means it's time for mom and dad to call the school.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
Miss So and so, I'm not trying to bother you or anything. I know you're very, very busy, but Johnny tells me that you never give him any homework. Is that true? I mean, you can run the class the way you want to. I just want to know if that's true.
Hmm.
It's usually not. Sometimes it is, but
Hmm.
it takes that type of parental interest to make that phone call. Don't wait for teachers. We've heard the story recently about the woman who sued, or the student who's suing the school system. I think
Hmm.
you've heard this story,
Hmm.
because they thought that they couldn't read. To that I say, not only do you sue the school for malpractice, you sue your mama for malpractice.
Yeah.
Because how do you go through 12 years and the school don't know and your mama don't know that you can't read?
Hmm.
I can't, I don't even know how to process that. I really don't even know how that happens,
Yeah.
but it does happen. And we
It's
have
not.
to also remember we have a society, and this is a Googleable fact. I'm not making this up.
Yeah.
We have a society, regardless of race, creed, color,
Hmm.
where 54% of all American citizens are reading at the sixth grade level or below.
Hmm.
Wait, what? And so then we wonder how we have some of these educational problems in other areas.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. If you can read everything, if you can read and comprehend, everything else will come to you. If you can read, you can do word problems in math.
Yeah.
If you can read, you can do science experiments. If you can read, you can understand and comprehend and interpret history. Literacy is key. Before we teach anything else, I don't care if a child can add one plus one. Can the child read?
Mhm.
And once we can master that and reading, then all the other things we can work on.
Yeah.
Because I could teach a kid to memorize his timetables quick. I could I could teach the formulas for math quick. And that most of the higher math,
Hmm.
this is now this is the disclaimer, is just Eugene's opinion. Most
Hmm.
of the higher math that we teach kids, most people won't even use unless they become mathematicians. But
Yeah.
all kids need to know the four basic functions.
Hmm.
Every kid needs to know how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide. And if you know how to do those four things, a lot of algebra 1 and algebra 2 takes care of itself.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if someone asks you 5x equals 20 and you don't know 5 times 4 equals 20, you're not
Mhm.
going to know what the heck x is.
Yeah. Yeah. And even just knowing like basic, figuring out percentages and things you need for budget,
All that,
I mean,
counting your money, keeping your checkbook, that stuff,
yeah. And to bring my daughter as an example, again, who's a junior in high school and struggling with algebra 2 and trig, and it's like she's also doing culinary school as CTE. And I'm like, you need to know some basic math and you need to use math and measurements. You need to figure out like a lot of stuff when you're cooking. And so it's like, there's a lot of kids who might say, well, I'm not going to use math later on. But
Absolutely. In CTE, you will.
yeah.
First of all, First of all, I don't need anybody cooking with a pinch of this or a pinch of that. 'Cause I don't know what unit of measure a pinch is. I don't know what that is. I need actual units of measurement that I've heard of before.
Yeah.
Other than a pinch and a splash, that don't work for me if I'm trying to eat some food out here.
Well, talking along the lines of post-secondary students who, Black students who might be preparing to enter predominantly white colleges and universities, what are some survival tips that you would give to parents or educators who might be teaching these students in their last year of high school?
Well, a couple of years back, I wrote a book called The Raisin-In Milk Syndrome: 10 Survival Tips for Black Students at Predominantly White Colleges and Universities. And so I wrote that right after I graduated with my undergraduate bachelor's degree from Emory University,
Hmm.
because it was one of those things where I attended private schools,
Hmm.
and had been exposed to a lot of higher level educational practices, but still, it didn't completely prepare me for what I would run into when I got to college, especially a college of Emory's ilk at that time. And
Hmm.
so, as a Black student, I said there's not only the academic challenges that everybody has to deal with, regardless of your color, but when you add the social element of being a minority on a predominantly white campus, that adds a whole new element. So a couple of things I say, number one, get to know your teachers.
Hmm.
And when I say get to know your teachers, don't just, yeah, I know you know them, what their names are, but find out when their office hours are, find out what their outside interests are, create relationships with them.
Hmm.
It's much at the college level. I find it's much easier to fail a student than it is to fail a person that you know. So this is very important. Number two, of course, it's the easy one. It's one we always talk about: getting good grades and studying hard. We can't leave that out. You have to do what your best you can on everything you do. You can't just say, "I'm going to get this book and sit on it, and by osmosis, it's going to rise to my brain and figure it out." No, you have to get together with study groups. You have to get together with people who are having a success in these subjects, and pick their brains and find out what they do and establish a schedule and a way of studying that best works for you. So that's very, very important. Number three, get involved in campus-wide organizations, because that's how you make connections, whether it be the Baptist Club, whether it be fraternities and sororities, whether it be student government leadership, whatever it is, because those are ways that will help you survive in college. I'll never forget. I'm a Christian. I'm the Christian faith. But I joined the Baptist Club at Emory because one of the reasons was every Friday they had Weenies and Franks for free. that they were serving. And I knew that when my money ran low, I could always roll over to the club
Yeah.
and get a free meal. That's a terrible thing to admit 30, 40, however many years later, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
You know, these are things that you can use to survive every day in college. The friendships and the connections that I formed as a member of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity,
Hmm.
and the lifelong friendships that I have even now, that help me in good stead in terms of associations and getting jobs and making connections. That's very, very important. So you want to make sure you get involved with other organizations on campus too. You also want to make sure that you observe students. This is primarily for the Black students. Observe students of other minority groups.
Hmm.
Now, what people that know me will tell you is Eugene has a habit sometimes of stepping on toes, not meaning to. It's all in love, but I do that sometimes. But I'm also very, very honest. When I got to Emory University, I noticed the Asian students all studied together. The Hispanic students all studied together. The rich white folks all studied together.
Hmm.
And so one of the things I said was, we have a lot of brain power in our group of Black young men and women.
Hmm.
And when we're in the same classes, we should be studying together.
Yeah.
We should be forming our own time and blocks of ways to study
Hmm.
and achieving these classes, just like everybody else does. You
Hmm.
know, it's not so much a racial thing, it's a matter of just survival in the situation that you're in. And
Hmm.
so that's one of the things I recommend. Also, for Black students, I say to them, and when I said this back then, a lot of my fellow Black students got salty with me. And I know why they did, and I understand it, and I take the L sometimes. I have no problem with that. But I still stand by this 30 or 40 years later. You got to know where you are, Black
Yeah.
students.
Hmm.
You got to know where you are, and you got to read the room.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you got to be careful not to be too much of a revolutionary. Now,
Hmm.
what? How could you? What are you talking about? When I went to Emory University back in 1987, I knew where I was going.
Hmm.
I knew I wasn't attending Howard. I knew I wasn't going to be attending Norfolk State. I knew I wasn't going to be attending Fisk or Grambling or Tuskegee. I knew where I was going.
Yeah.
I knew what the political sensibilities were there. And I knew if I wanted to achieve, I have to move in ways that might be different than the ways I would move at another place.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
called being, it's called self-awareness. It's called being aware of what's around you. So I would tell students, especially African American students at predominantly white campuses, to keep that in mind. Now, when I say don't be too much of a revolutionary, do I say let people walk all over you? No.
Hmm.
But find out who's in charge, know how to manipulate the system to gain the ends that you want to gain or achieve things you want to achieve within that framework. Also, get to know the administration.
Hmm. Hmm.
A lot of things I was able to do, or my fraternity was able to do as Black students at Emory University, was because we knew the dean of students well. We ate breakfast with him. We played racquetball with him. We knew these guys. We knew the certain professors. We knew who was in charge of what. So, at one point at Emory, the Alphas, we didn't have our own fraternity house
Hmm. Hmm.
like everybody else. In fact, none of the Black Greeks at Emory at the time had their own fraternity house. We wanted to be the first one.
Hmm.
So we got to know the people who could make the changes
Hmm.
on campus that would allow us to do that. And within 2 years, a house was built for us on Fraternity Row that we didn't have to pay for.
Wow.
But you got to know how to maneuver and who to talk to.
Hmm.
Hey, if you never learn anything else from me, African American students, college is political.
Hmm. Hmm.
College is politics. Life, in many ways, is politics. And just, be an example. Be a
Hmm.
positive example to those who look like you, to those who don't look like you, um, to the greater community of the college where you go. Because when people think of you and look at you, and they say, that's a young man or young woman that I want to be like. That's a young man or young woman that's achieving great things. That's a young man or young woman that, you know, I want my kids to kind of emulate,
Hmm.
regardless of what color you are. You'll see some great things happen for you. We live in a society, we live in a world that has a lot of problems. We live in a country that has a lot of problems.
Hmm.
As a 55-year-old African American male, You can't school me on racism. I know all about it, all too well.
Mhm. Mhm.
However, I also know that there are strategies that can be employed that can make this journey not easier,
Mhm.
but more palatable.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
those are great tips for students entering college, or who might be. I know a lot of students now are trying to gain credits at local community college before
sure.
transferring to four-year colleges.
Do that.
Yeah, and then just because it's so expensive nowadays, but also like you said, even if you're entering as a junior with credits from before, and an older student per se, it's getting to know people. It's getting to your study groups and groups of friends, and reading the room, like you said, it's really important, especially now.
Can I
Uh,
add one? Can I add one more thing too
yeah.
about that?
Mhm.
There's a new thing about, not a new movement, but it's over the past 10 years. We've been encouraging students of all colors
Yeah.
that are coming out of high school to start going into the trades.
Yeah.
And I get that. I understand that. I know for many years my plumber made more than I did. I know
Mhm.
for many years my barber made more than I did.
Mhm.
I'm all for that. I get that. But I want our young people, especially young people of color, to be very aware of college educated people with multiple degrees who aren't black
Mhm.
telling them that college is not for them.
Mhm.
Watch that.
Mhm.
That's because here's what I also know. I want to create a society where kids have an option and are
Mhm.
prepared to do whatever they need to do. You've been educated in such a way that you're prepared to go to a 4 year, or you're prepared to start your career in trades.
Mhm.
That's what we want to do, because say what you want to say. I know it's cool now to the to talk bad, or to bash education. Now it's become a kind of a new thing where it's kind of cool to do that. Um, those that do that need to remember
Mhm.
that the overwhelming majority of the people in Washington who make the laws about the food we eat, the air we breathe, how much money we get, how much money we give away,
Mhm.
all those people, or almost all of those people, have multiple degrees.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's just be careful. And most of those people have law degrees.
Mhm. Mhm.
Now, you have the occasional, Miss Bovard out there in Colorado has a GED, and that's another conversation for another day that I could talk about. But for the most part,
Or yeah, people have at least a
yeah,
degree.
you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a good point to make about, getting that four-year degree. If even if it comes through going via community college
Right.
coursework, or doing some type of trade, and maybe then
Sure.
realizing, like my daughter who's doing culinary, it's like I have also said, like, you can do cooking school out of high school, but you will probably need a business or marketing degree if you want to open your own pastry.
Absolutely.
You
Absolutely.
should know those things if you're going to have your own business.
Yes, ma'am.
So yeah,
Yes,
that's
ma'am.
important. I wanted to talk about a thing that you said when you were a principal, when you would sign off on the announcements. It was around the attitude of gratitude.
You know, as an assistant principal and as a principal, I always taught my students, number one, to have an attitude of gratitude. And a lot of my students always they liked me, but they always thought there was just a little bit of a layer of corniness to Mr. Williams, and I understood that. I didn't care. I'm not trying to impress 15-year-olds, but the whole idea was, I said, we go to school every day, and we come with long faces, and a lot of our young people come to school with serious problems from home. Let's not underestimate that. They do, and I understand that, but. And when they come with those to us with those problems, we need to be able to refer them to people who can help them solve those problems. I'm all for that. But let's not let these kids languish in those problems. And by that I mean, when you get the chance to point out some positive things that they're not aware of that are happening in their lives, as adults, we got to do it. I would tell kids all the time, you know what? You woke up this morning by yourself and no one had to help you put your clothes on. There are people who can't say that. You woke up this morning by yourself and with your hand pulled the toothbrush out of the rack for those of you that were brushing your teeth, and brushed your teeth,
Yeah.
before you got here. And there's a lot of people that can't do that.
Mhm.
You were listening on to that Walkman as you walked to the building, way too loud for your ears, but you were enjoying the music because you were bopping your head.
Yeah.
Some people can't hear today. Some
Yeah.
people can't see today. Some people have no sense of smell. So every single thing that you can do,
Hmm.
be grateful for that because there's somebody out there that can't do that.
Yeah.
And I would always tell the kids that. Also, when I was a principal, at the end of every morning announcement, I would borrow a line from the famous comedian George Wallace.
Mhm.
And I would tell the kids, Mr. Williams loves you, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it.
Mhm.
And they'd ask me, why do you say that, Mr. Williams? I mean, we like it and it's funny, we hear it, but because sometimes we kind of mock you when you say that because we know you're going to say it every morning. Why do you always say that? I said, you know why I say that? I said, because there's people in this building,
Mhm.
some students, some teachers, some custodians, anybody. But there's some people in this building that never hear the words "I love you" directed towards them any other time other than when they hear me say it over the morning announcements.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so I just want for people to hear that from somebody. It matters.
Yeah.
The words matter. The things
Hmm.
you hear every day matter. The things that are programmed into your brain every day matter
Hmm.
and will manifest themselves in the way you treat others. And so my last graduation as principal, I ended my speech with, and as Mr. Williams says, and I didn't have to say it, the whole audience, parents and all, said, "We love you. There's absolutely nothing you can do about it." And I said, "Well, you all said I was corny, but you all know it, don't you?" Everybody in this room, hundreds of people are saying that right now at the same time in a world where we don't say that to each other often enough because of all the other petty foolishness that we're getting into.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, it's
So,
such an important point. And I've been at schools where principals do say something similar to that. And it goes a long way for how it starts kids' days. And just like, there might not be anybody else in the building who says that to them, right? But
right,
like the
right,
principal is the one who's leading the charge and
right.
setting that positive school culture. So,
Right. And I would always tell kids too, I said, believe me, these teachers do care about you
mhm.
because the money they get paid is not enough nearly enough money to put up with you. So they do more than put up with you. They care about you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we've had a great conversation today around just some tips for parents of children of all ages and a lot that you've learned from your family growing up about literacy and also Black male success in advanced courses. Out of everything we've talked about, what's one thing you'd like listeners to remember?
Um, and that changed from what we talked about before because it's just coming to me right now. I want everybody to remember that everybody is going through something.
Yeah.
So when you talk to somebody, approach them like you know that.
Hmm. Hmm.
And what some people can take and shoulder is greater than what another person can take and shoulder. Doesn't make the problem any less relevant to them.
Hmm. Hmm.
So just understand that when you talk to somebody, approach them with a modicum of respect and dignity because everybody is going through something.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, that's really important to remember. Where can people connect with you and find you online?
Okay, so there's www.eugenewilliamsjr.com. That's one way. You can follow me on Instagram at EUGWILLJR. And you can follow me on TikTok at Eugene Williams Jr.
Great. I'll make sure I put all those links in the show notes. It was a pleasure having you on the podcast today and learning
Thank
from
you so much.
your experience and expertise.
I appreciate you.